Hi everybody, welcome back for another clear blue tiles tutorial. Today we're going to talk about custom quilting, and we're going to custom quilt this scrappy mini quilt together. If this is your first time on my channel and your first time using clear blue tiles, I'm going to recommend that you watch my Clear Blue Tiles, a beginner's guide video. I'll link this below. I also have a 3-part series for the seasonal houses runner, which is included in the user's guide when you buy the Clear Blue Tiles Essentials set. In the beginner's guide video, I open the box, we go through the user's guide, talk about hoop size, how you fit your tiles, how you place your tiles, the proper way to trace, how to line everything up. So if you've never used Clear Blue Tiles before, please watch this video. It's worth a watch. We cover edge-to-edge quilting. In this video, we're going to take your skills a little bit further and we're going to do custom quilting. Different sizes of tiles, different designs, and we're going to work with this pattern, which is free on my website. That will be linked in the description box below. You can download a PDF version. Let's take a quick look at the pattern, how to read it, and there's also a coloring page. I'll show you a couple ways to use that. This is a picture of my finished quilt. I dove into my scrap bin. I had some scraps from Sherry and Chelsea of Motive Fabrics. It's a mix of Balboa and Seashore Drive. This project finishes to 30 inches square. This is my first time putting together a pattern, so feedback is welcome and it's free. So if you see an issue or a problem, please email me. It's azfamilyzoo@gmail.com. so I can fix that for everybody. How I laid this out is I went through block by block. I gave you the measurements. I talked about scraps. I don't give you any yardage for this. This is dive into your scrap bin. I give you the biggest size square you need, the longest piece of fabric you need, and there's a reference in here for other Clear Blue Tiles videos. When you go through the pattern, you'll see each section has a simple diagram. It gives you the measurement and shows the layout. I did this in black and white, grayscale, whatever you'd like to call it. So we have a 9 patch, a 4 patch, a star block, a friendship star block, cornerstones, and sashing. That's the simple layout. I also went through and I show you how to put each block together. As I put my top together, I took pictures. So there's step by step for each block. Here's the 9 patch. I show how to lay out the fabric. This one I sewed in rows. I show you the back side. You can see how I'm pressing my seams and sewing the rows together. Same thing here for the 4 patch. On what's called the variable star block, I walk you step by step how to make your flying geese, and I also show you what to do with the little triangle cutoffs. I've got 8 of these little leftover scrap fabric pieces. I'm going to come up with something fun for this. We'll make another project out of these, so save these. Again, this one goes through step by step, showing you how I lay it out, how I sew the seams, how to press it. And then we've got our friendship star block. Again, picking your fabrics, tracing your lines, doing the cutting, how to square your block. It's all in here in case you're a beginner quilter, how to lay out your rows, how to sew, and how to press your block. Then I show you how I lay out my cornerstones and sashing and how I sew everything together. There's also a page that's included giving you some references, my YouTube channel, Instagram, website, Etsy, email, some affiliate links for Kimber Bell. And then the last page is a coloring page. This has no colors at all. It's just the outlines. So you can pick your fabrics, you can color this in with colored pencils. I also use this to help me lay out my Clear Blue tiles. I will tell you, when I designed this pattern, this block, and this block, all the components are even numbers. This block has some odd numbered sized areas, and we're going to do something a little bit different to quilt this in Quilted Custom. Custom quilting is different from edge to edge. Edge to edge, the same design runs across your quilt. What I did was I picked different designs, different sizes, and I laid everything out, and then we'll quilt this out together. One thing about this pattern, these are all 12-inch finished blocks. If you don't like, let's say you don't want to make this one, that you really hate making flying geese, don't make it. Make 2 of these. You could even make this really simple, make 4 of these. If you don't want a 30-inch mini quilt, but you want a pillow, make one, and you've got a pillow. I'm going to recommend you print out the coloring page for this project. I'm going to be working with some of the clear blue tiles files that came with the Essentials set, and one file called Floral 1, which I have in my downloads. What I did was I laid out everything I want to use and wrote down the sizes. This is going to help me when I go to lay out my blocks, and we cover this in the beginner's guide video. There's this little size box here. I won't necessarily have to write the size. I have it all here for reference. Let's look at the easier blocks first. The 4 patch is very simple. It's made up of 4 6x6 squares. Here's what my quilt looks like. I picked the Floral 1 design, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. I'm going to put that here and here. And then for these 2 blocks that have the big flower on it, I went with the loops. It's more of a simple quilting, so it won't distract from the pretty print on the fabric. These are all going to be done with the 6x6 tile. The 6x6 tile comes with the Essentials set. Next, we'll look at the Friendship Star. All of the clear blue tiles are either square or rectangle. They don't have triangles, so you have to think about things as square or rectangle. We've got the corner squares, and I picked loops. The corner squares have a nice floral fabric. I wanted something simple. The center, this brown fabric, I'm going to use the Floral 1. And then even though we have triangles here, I'm looking at these as a square. I'm going to use swirls. You can see I've got this written out 4x4, 4x4, 4x4. The 4x4 tile comes with your Essentials set. Let's look at the 9 patch. I picked the Floral 1 design and the swirls design, and this again is going to be a 4x4. We're going to talk cornerstones and sashing before we get to the most complicated block. The cornerstones are 2x2 finished. I'm going to use one of the bitty blocks. This comes with your Essentials set. That's the 2x2 tile. The sashing here is 2x12. This is going to be one of 2 that I used from the expansion set. If you don't have the expansion set, you can pick smaller tiles to fill in larger areas, or if you have a smaller hoop, I covered that in the beginner's guide video, and I also talked about that in the Seasonal Houses Runner video. I'm going to use the 2x12 from the expansion set because that will fill the whole area. Let's talk variable star. Most of the tiles are in even numbers. There are some odd numbered border tiles, which is what I ended up having to use to do this. Let's look at the variable star. The center, very easy, 6x6. 6x6 comes with the standard Essentials set. I do have a 3x12. This comes from the expansion set. So the 3x12 can run here or here or here or here. It's going to go right like that. But then that leaves me this little flying geese here, which is 3x6. There's no 3x6. Here's what we're going to do, and this is going to be my first time trying this. There's a 3x7 border that's included in the Essentials set. I picked the loop design, and I'll show you all of these designs. What I'm going to do when I quilt this part is let the machine start and go down, but keep an eye on it. And when it hits where I want it to stop, I'm just going to stop my machine and cut my thread. On page 10 of your user's guide, you can see what comes with the clear blue tiles. My cornerstones, I'm going to use this little flower, that's the bitty block. I'll also be using the spring design, that's going to be the borders, loops, and swirls throughout. And then Floral 1 is something I purchased from the Kimberbell website. I'll link that below. That's the Floral 1 design, and it comes with all the different sizes. Let's start with the easy block first. We're going to do the big giant 4 patch. This is going to use 4 6x6. I'm going to mark this a little bit differently than when I mark edge to edge because I'm not so worried about everything lining up. Since each block is going to be a little different, there's going to be one pattern here and one pattern here, and then a different pattern here and a different pattern here. I'm not concerned with lining up each of the edges because we're not doing edge to edge. So this will be a little bit different. All I'm going to mark on here is the center mark, and if you want to mark the up, you can. I know which side of my quilt is up, but none of these designs are directional. So I really don't need the up mark on this. I need to mark centers, and that's pretty much it. I can kind of see the center of my block. Let's lay down some tape and then we'll mark these. And I also don't need to mark what design I'm using or what size tile I'm using because I have it all written on my coloring page. I wrote everything out. This is going to be my reference for when I'm quilting. So you've got your 6x6, and all I'm going to do is mark the center. What you can do, you can mark the little lines around the center when you get this to your hoop. That can help you double check, so you can make those marks. Honestly, if you just mark the center and you make sure it's lined up in your hoop, and you've worked with these before, you'll probably be fine. I'll go ahead and make a couple of the extra marks. That's all I need. I'll be able to work with that when I get to my hoop. While I'm here, I want to mark my cornerstones and my sashing. Grab some more tape. You will go through a lot of tape with this method, but I really like using the tape, and I don't like marking on my quilt. The water-soluble marker will come off, but then you have to sit there and wet your quilt and wait for it to dry. When you use the tape, when we go to center it, we get everything lined up, and then we just pull off the tape and we're done. You don't have to worry about any of your marks. So let's mark these cornerstones and sashing in real time, and then I can mark the rest off camera because this is all going to be done the same. Your cornerstones are your 2x2 block. One thing that's a little bit different and something to think about how you place this. When you're placing it here, I definitely want to center this. This is the center of the quilt. All the seams are already sewn around it. So let's mark that one. This one's ready to go. Now let's think about how we're going to position this. When you're on the bottom of your quilt, you don't want this centered because remember, you're going to have binding here. So I'm going to slide this so the top of the tile hits this seam. And I'm going to get in here and mark this one. Like that. This one down in the lower corner, I'm going to scooch up and to the left because I know I'm going to have binding here and here. So you don't want it centered because if you center it, when you put your binding on, you're going to lose some of your quilting. So you want to bump it up against this seam and this seam. We'll mark this one. We're bumped up against this seam and this seam. And if you are working with something directional, you can make the line and make the arrow. For this one, it fits right in between, and then I want to slide it all the way over toward the center of the quilt. So I've got that lined up top and bottom, and then along this seam. There we go. Go to mark that. And let's talk about the sashing. This one's the easiest. It fits between everything. Here, 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 and here. This one is also going to fit exactly the same. When you do these two, just like you did with your little bitty blocks, your cornerstones, you want to bump it against this seam here. You don't want it centered because you'll lose something in the binding. So make sure it's centered top to bottom. I'm going to check that tape. Make sure I'm not writing on my quilt because I don't want to make it wet later. There's my mark. For your bottom sashing, you've got the center right here. That makes it really easy to center. And then you want to push it up against this seam. Again, you'll have extra here, but that's going to get caught in your binding. Let's mark this one. And then we'll mark this one. Get that centered. This section is done. Let's do the 9 patch. It's going to be extremely similar. And again, I will do the rest of the sashing and the cornerstones off camera because it's going to be the same. For the 9 patch, I'm using the 4x4. I've got tape down on everything. You can start wherever you want to start. Again, I have one design that's going on the orange and one design that's going on the white. So I'm not concerned with making all of the marks because I'm not doing edge to edge. So this gets marked just like the 4 patch. I have the tape down, I'll mark the center, Again, not directional. I don't feel like I need the arrow. That's it. I'm going to do that on every one of these patches. All of these are marked, and I went ahead and took care of the sashing and the cornerstone. Let's do the friendship star. I've got my tape down. I did my cornerstones and sashing. Even though there's triangles, this is all 4x4. So this block is done exactly like the 9 patch. The friendship star is marked. We're ready to go to the variable star. One thing I thought when I was designing this quilt and putting it together was I would use a 3-inch square. There is no 3-inch square. We're going to make it work. An easy way to do this one would be to do 6, 6, 6, and 6. It would give it an all-over quilting look. In fact, you can do that for all of the blocks if you want. You could do all-over quilting inside the blocks and then do something different in your cornerstones and your sashing, and it'll still have that custom look because everything's going to be a little different. My center block does need the 6x6. Let me mark that one. That's ready. I'm going to use the 3x12 and mark across the top and across the bottom. Now let's talk about this section. This is the section that's going to be a little bit off. So I want to line this up with this seam here. So that's where my tape needs to go. Let's mark that. And then I want to make a note for myself, and I can take this out before I start quilting. I'm just putting a piece of tape here, and I'm writing the word stop. I don't think I'm going to forget, but just in case, by the time I get to this one, if I forget I have to stop, that's going to remind me when I have that in my hoop. Let's lay out our last block. That's it. We're all marked and ready to go. Now we have to figure out how we're going to hoop this. My biggest hoop is a 9.5 by 14. For all over quilting, I generally like to work center out. If we center this, I can get this quilted, this square, and that's it, because there's not enough room for this, and even though this looks like it's in the hoop, it's running just underneath. Let's start with our 4-patch. I'm going to start by quilting the 4-patch block first. Now this is a 9.5 by 14-inch hoop. So visually, when you look at this, it looks like this fits. But remember, this is 12 inches, this is 2, and this is 2. So 12, 14, 16. Even though it looks like it fits, I don't have 16 inches of quiltable space. It's a 14-inch hoop. So the first thing I'm going to do is 2 of these and 2 of these. If you want to get your plastic grid, you can do that. I'm just going to eyeball it. Nothing is directional. If I need to move anything in my machine, I can do that. When I go to hoop, I'm going to be looking at this line and my seam line. And you can see I've got this nice tape line here as well to help. This is the kind of batting I'm using today. It's Missouri Stars Quilter's Best Blend. Very similar to feel and weight of the Kimberbell Project batting. It's not overly fuzzy. It's kind of what I think of as like a flat batting. We're going to start with the 4-patch. You'll notice that the quilt has been moved and rotated. I've got my backing fabric, my batting, and my quilt top. I'm not using any spray based or anything because we're putting it in the embroidery hoop. You just need to smooth it out as you go and keep it nice and smooth. Let's get this one quilted. The first thing I'm going to do is take the top part of my embroidery hoop and visually center it for me. This is the top of my quilt, this is the bottom. I'm working on these 2 blocks. I'm going to slide this underneath, and I know this is going to move. That looks pretty good. It feels good. I can feel where the hoop is. I don't think I've loosened it enough. Keep in mind that you're working with batting, backing, and your quilt top, so it's a bit thicker than when you just do regular embroidery stuff. I've loosened my hoop a little bit more. We've got a lot of extra material. You can use the slat bands that came with your Clear Blue Tiles Essentials set. I'm on a baby lock meridian. All my files are on USB. I've got the camera in a weird spot. I've got to kind of reach around it, so hopefully I don't jiggle it. It's on a tiny little tripod. I'm looking for my Floral 1 6x6 design. That's going to go on the square that's on the top of my hoop. I'm going to set this one first. I'm actually going to hit the embroidery button. Now we're going to adjust it. I'm going to keep it on the screen here for a minute so you can see which buttons I'm going to be using. It's not centered. I didn't get it just right. I'm going to hit the layout, move. These buttons will move my embroidery hoop. I'll push one and you'll hear it move. Can you hear it click? We're going to go look at it and see how close I was for centering. My needle is right here. The center of my block is that little blue dot there. I need to move this over. That looks pretty good. What I actually like to do is hand crank the needle down. Not quite. I'm a little off. And I know you're not supposed to hand crank backwards, but sometimes I do, down and up. That's exactly where I want that block to be. Let me go ahead and thread my needle before I forget it. This one's all centered and ready to go. We're also going to do this block, but I'm going to do one at a time rather than try and set up the other one and center them. I don't want to accidentally mess this one up. I'm going to double check really quick. That's exactly where I want that needle. I need to take off my tape, and when I put the foot down, see I have a green button. It's ready to go. Let's go. This is all quilted out. That was a 4-minute stitch out. I don't have my machine going at full speed. It looks like it did pretty good. It's all within the boundaries of the block. I did a good job centering. One thing I didn't talk about is the quilting density. This has a lot going on. You can see the block looks almost flat. And then right here, I'm going to do the loops, which is more open. I'm going to have a little bit of a different feel from block to block. So if you want to do custom quilting, but you want it to all kind of have the same feel, the same density, you know, the same space between the patterns, think about that as you're choosing what you're picking for your quilting. I hope that makes sense. Here's what's on my screen. We just finished with the Floral 1. I can go ahead and hit the home button. It'll clear everything off. We're going to go back to our clear blue tiles, and this time I'm using something that came with the clear blue tiles essential set. So I have to go all the way in. I use PES, and I'm looking for loops, not the border loops, the regular loops, clear blue tiles, and I want 6x6. Here it is. I'm going to go ahead and hit set. And I need to center it just like before. I'm going to hit that layout button, the move button, and use those little arrows and get this where it needs to go. Hitting the OK button on my screen. I'm going to peel up the tape. I'm double checking. I have loops on my screen. I have loops written down on my piece of paper. If you accidentally pull off your centering tape and realize you've got the wrong thing on your screen, just put your towel back down and remark it. You'll be fine. Let's stitch out the loops. This says it's going to be a minute stitch out, so this is going to go a lot faster. This is all stitched out. It goes right to that edge. I did pretty good. I think I've got one stitch over here on the next block over. I could have done a little bit better with my centering, but it's pretty good. I'm going to hit OK on my screen. Let's go over to the screen. I'm going to leave this here because we're going to do the next part of our 4-patch, and I'm going to need this probably about up there. You heard my machine, I'm sure. I'm going to let this sit here. We're going to take off our hoop. I'm going to take it out of the hoop. We will rehoop together, and then after that I'll probably do all of the hooping off screen except for maybe the sashing. Got this off my machine. Let's loosen this and move it. There are better screwdrivers to use than this. There's the one that comes with the machine. It's that really weird round one. Let's move that over. And if you happen to catch your tape, if it got caught or if it peeled up, just retape. It's not that big a deal. One thing I'm going to do is pull this completely out, smooth everything out. Make sure everything's nice and flat. Everything feels good. Let's look at where we want to put this. Now, if you're worried about the wrinkles, you can iron it between hoopings. I'm just not worried about it. I'll iron it at the end. Let's go ahead and tighten. Remember how I moved it up that way? You know that's not going to be right. Let's put our hoop on our machine. It's not even close to center. We're going to move. I'm spot on centered. Let's hit OK. I was sort of tugging at this, trying to make sure that this stays straight. I'm actually going to grab some paper tape and I'm going to tape this to help make sure this lies flat. Because if this is pointing in, the quilting will go off into my sashing. I'm going to go ahead and just pull that over a little bit, make sure it's nice and flat. I'm still centered. I can double check my needle. I'm going to go ahead and tape this. And then when I get down here for this block, I'll do the same thing. Double checking what's on my screen. Loops, which is what's over here on this block. Loops, loops and loops, corner to corner. I'm ready to go. Same process. I'm going to clear this off my screen. I'm going to bring up the floral one 6-inch. And we're going to hit layout and move. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to hand move it a little bit. That's really close. Now I can use this and fine tune it. It's right where I want it to be. I'm going to tape that bit of sashing. I'm going to pull that nice and tight. And then I'm going to double check and make sure I didn't shift my block at all. Nope, I'm still right there on the center. If you want this to be a little tighter, you can also tape this. I can tell this is a little loose. See, it's got a little bump there. I can tape that right onto my hoop. It's not going to harm your hoop. Let's check the needle again. It's still centered. All quilted right to that corner. I'm glad I pulled this down. This hit right near the bottom. Back at the beginning, the sashing I picked is Spring, and that is from the Clear Blue Tiles files. Let's bring up Spring. And I'm looking for 2 by 12. I'm going to have to guess. 2 by 8, I'm going to get this. This is 2 by 10, and this is 2 by 12, and that's probably 2 by 14. So let's bring up 2 by 12. Yep, that's what I want. And I'm going to do what I did before and grab it and move it. Now this time my machine didn't move. In order to make my machine move, I have to hit that embroidery button. Now my machine moves with me. Okay, get as close as I can. That looks pretty good. Let's go see how close I got. I'm going to hand crank the needle. Wow, look at that. You know, if I just sort of brush my fabric over, I bet it'll be even. Yep, I actually hit that one pretty good. Let's see, I don't think I need another piece of tape up there, but I'm going to go ahead and add a little piece just in case to keep it extra straight. I'm all centered. Let's double check. I'm going to peel that up. We're all quilted. Let's take this to the table and have a look. Let's get this out of the hoop. You might have seen I added a small piece of tape to the corner. I stopped it as it was coming down because I noticed this wasn't flat like it needed to be, so I pulled it and added that piece of tape. Let's pick this up and have a look. So this is the side of my quilt. Actually, it doesn't matter. Nothing on this is directional. Look at that. Right to the edge of the white. See that? I thought it hit the purple. I don't think it did. Maybe a little bit right there. Looks great. I'm glad I pulled that and I taped that. Went right to the bottom. Here's our blocks. We've got the loop on this one and the floral one on this one. Let's get a closer look at that. This is what I mean by this quilting is a little more dense than the quilting next to it. You can see there's a lot going on here. And this is a little bit more open, but that's fine. This is a 30-inch square fun little project. I'm going to go up, but I'm not going to do the center section. This is a small project. I'm not worried about puckering or anything. If it was a really big quilt, I would try to do more of the center out, but I did this. I'm going to do the same thing here. This block and this sashing. Let's smooth it out. I'll start here. I'll do these. The garbage truck keeps driving by. It's garbage day. And then these and this. And then we'll do the middle sashing together. I've loaded the 4x4 floral one design. Let's say I've got it hooped. I've got my hoop on my machine and I realize it's just a little bit crooked. My machine has an edit feature. This is a Baby Lock Meridian. If you have a Baby Lock or a Brother, your screen will probably look very similar and you'll probably have an edit button somewhere. I'm going to hit edit. There's a button for rotate. See how you can rotate it by 90 degrees, 10 degrees, and even 1 degree and 0.1 degree. So if your hoop is in a little bit crooked, you can tilt that block. Even if it's just off just the tiniest bit like that, you can move your block. You don't have to keep rehooping your project. I need to get this into the upper left corner. That's where I'm going to start. I'm dragging and dropping. That looks pretty close. And let me show you another feature you probably have on your embroidery machine. Here's a couple things you can use to check your block positioning. This button right here with the needle and the little crosshair and the box around it. Right now my needle's in the center. You can check the positioning of your block. You can move it to the upper left, top center, upper right, either side, and then lower left, lower center, lower right. Let me go ahead and move the camera so you can see the hoop. I have my block centered, but I want to double check. I want to make sure this is straight. I'm going to hit the button for the bottom left. See where the needle is? I can tell it's right there in the bottom left. It's not in the sashing. It's not in this block here. That looks good. Let's go bottom right. It's right there. That also looks good. I think I am centered. Top right. Let's check that one. That is right on the edge of that block. Now part of that is because when I hooped it, this isn't in the hoop. So I need to pull this up like that and tape it like we did before. Let me tape that and then we'll double check our positioning. I've added my tape to help pull that nice and flat. If you've used a spray based, you're probably not going to have that problem. Let's smooth this out. I'm still in the top right. It's right there. It is just inside that line right here, the seam line. So it looks good. Let's check top left. You can always put your needle down and check that looks good. Now, since I pulled this up, I'm going to double check the bottom of my block. Wants me to touch that needle button again. It's really persnickety about the needle. Let's check. Still good. And that still looks good. I'm ready to go. Don't forget to take off your tape. This one's done. I'm going to slide it straight down and center it and do this one next. This one is done. You may have seen me add a little piece of tape up here. What I did was pull this fabric a little bit tighter and I taped it to the hoop. That helped hold it straight. I'm going to do the middle one next. We're on to the next part. I've already centered this. I'm using the swirls for this block and these two blocks. Centering, moving, adjusting, doing everything the same way. These 6 are done. I'm going to go ahead and rehoop. I'll work through these 3 just like I did these, and then we'll talk again about the sashing and adjusting that. These 3 blocks are done. Let's do our sashing. When I rehooped, I went ahead and pulled this over and I taped it. I'm actually out of my 505 spray and I'm waiting for a glue stick to arrive, a special fabric glue stick. If you have those kinds of products, it might be easier. You can also baste with your sewing machine. Some people like to baste where you put everything down and you do a really long stitch all the way around. I don't like doing that. I also have pulled this over. This is the batting because the batting ended right where I was hooping. So I pulled that flat and I just taped it to the hoop. I have my 2x12 file loaded. We're going to move this and adjust this the same way we did the block files. We did one of these sashings before. Let's work through this one. That looks pretty good. That's spot on there. And then let's use the check on the corners. That looks good. That looks good. Let's go to the top 2 corners. Let me double check that one. I'm in the purple on that, and I had some extra room underneath, so I'm going to move my design a bit. That looks good. Now I'm going to check all the corners again, just to be sure. We know this corner's good. That corner is good. Now I'm really close down here. You see that? It's still okay. I can pull that a little bit. That'll do it. And then go ahead and tape it. I'm just going to pull this a little tight. I've got a little bit of fabric I can tuck. When you're doing a quilt top on a long arm machine, you've got roller bars at the top of your quilt and the bottom of your quilt, and then clamps on the left and the right sides. I often find that as I'm advancing a quilt, I make similar types of adjustments. Sometimes the equivalent to this on the bottom roller bar, if the top is a little wonky, you roll it and you actually pull it and then you'll pin it to the cloth that's on the roller bar, and that helps even it out. So even if you're quilting on a long arm machine, you have to make similar adjustments as you go. Everything looks good now. I am going to check the middle sides on this one. This is a long strip. That looks good. And that looks good. Let's go back to the center. I'm going to go ahead and take my tape off, and we're ready to quilt the sashing strip. That came out great. Up in the corner, we've got a cornerstone. Let's quilt out our first bitty block. I've got my files on USB. It's the Clear Blue Tiles USB that came with the Clear Blue Tiles Essentials set. We're going to pull up one of the bitty blocks. Bitty blocks? Those are our 2x2 Clear Blue tiles. I want to use the flower. Let's get that positioned just like our other blocks. I'm going to drag and drop on my screen. Try to get it to approximately where it needs to go. Now we're up in the corner. This is kind of loose. Do you see that? I want to tape this down and secure it. I don't want it loose like that. I can tell I need to adjust it and it's not quite centered. So let's get that ready to go. I'm spot on in the center. Peel off the tape and stitch it out. That came out great. That's really cute. It adds a little bit of an extra touch to your cornerstones. And remember, while you're doing this quilting, if you really want to make something stand out and be ultra custom, you can be using different colors of thread. Every time you're changing a pattern, like here, maybe I wanted to do purple thread instead. Maybe I wanted a colored thread in the border to make the border stand out a bit more. Different colors and different blocks. You can do that as well. We're going to move on to the Friendship Star. Here's the layout for my Friendship Star block. This is the same as the 9 patch. Even though we've got half square triangles here, there's no triangle tiles, so everything is going to be a square. I'm going to work this exactly the same way that I did the 9 patch in the upper corner. Since we've done that before, I'll go ahead and hoop it and work through it to music. You can watch me work through these blocks, and then we'll move on to the variable star. Let's go over the plan for this block. We're going to go center out. The first thing I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and I'll quilt this sashing. We've done enough sashing. I'll do that off camera. The second thing is going to be this center section. This is the one where I'm using something that's a little bit too long and I have to do a manual stop. Then we'll do the 6x6. Then we'll do this one where we've got the manual stop. And then I'll move over here and I'll do the sashing. I've quilted the sashing. We're going to work on this part right here. I need to use the 3x7 border file for this. My block is actually 3x6. But let's go ahead and bring up the 3x7 border block. Border loops. And I'm looking for a 3x7. That's why I picked this one. Do you see how it's going to be easy to stop? One thing I've noticed though, it's very symmetrical. So I have it measured down. I'm thinking that's not going to work because it's going to shift it down. It's going to look weird. Let's bring it up on the screen and then we'll make some adjustments on the fly. Here's the block we're going to be working with. Here's the center of the block. It's the peak, and I have the center marked down here because I was thinking I would shift this down, but now I'm thinking that's going to look really strange. We're going to move the center up so it corresponds with the peak. I want this centered and I want it corresponding to the point here. That looks good. I think I'm right where it needs to be. I'm a little past up top and down below because it's a 3x6 block and I'm using a 3x7 tile. We're just going to remark. Let's slide this back and reposition our embroidery. I need to adjust that. I'm going to do that just like before. I'm going to use the arrows. It doesn't need that much in the way of adjustments. Let's talk about that. Here it is at the top. I've got that little part stitched. I cut off the top curve and then I started it again here. It looks like I needed to start it back a stitch or two. Here's the bottom. I did better right here. Down here, I've got some loose thread. So this isn't necessarily the best method of doing this. I thought I'd try it and see what happens. I'm rehooping and getting this ready. Here's the loops we just stitched out that I showed close up, right? It's a pretty big loop. Now I have used the loops elsewhere, but let's look at them. They're here. They're tiny. They're also over here. And they're tiny. So the border loops were a bit different. There's not a lot of stitching here. I think what I'm going to do is we'll do this block in the center. This is going to be the floral 6x6, just like we've been doing the blocks before, nothing new. And then when we get over to this one, I'm going to try shrinking the file a little bit, seeing how that looks. If it looks really good, I can pull this out because there's no tack down stitches except for right there and at the very end wherever that went. It's squished over there. It would be really easy to pull that out if I decide I want to requilt it. Let's take a look at some files for a moment. When we look at border loops, I'm going to pull up the 3x12. Let's just look at that one. Do you see how it's a single line of loops? If we go back to the files, instead of the border loops, we just go to the loop file. Here's the loop, not the border loops. And we bring up 2x12. Here's 2x12. Do you see the difference? Smaller loops for the block files, bigger loops, one straight line for the border files. Here's what I think I'm going to do. My little flying geese is 3x6. We have a 2x6. That's going to have the same scale as the other loop blocks in the quilt. I'm going to try centering this because it'll be perfect from top to bottom. It'll be a little narrow going this way, but on either side we've got sashing and other blocks. I think that's going to blend in just fine. We're back at the table. What I've done is I've removed all of my tape from this block. 2x6 and 2x12. Let's go back and try that. So here's our 2x12. There's actually a couple of things we can try. There's one called size. This will bring it in on all sides, out on all sides, squishing it top to bottom, raising it top to bottom, squishing it from the sides, and pushing out. We can push out 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's 2.02 wide. I'm looking at the number here. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, that's as big as I can make that. You can see it makes the loops a little bit oval. Let's go see what that looks like. And then I thought of something else we can try as well. I still have a little bit. Do you see that? And a little bit. There's something else we can try. The other thing we can do is pull up the 2x10. And we can enlarge the 2x10 and see where the 2x10 ends. 2x8, 2x10. I'm going to edit, size. Now I can expand all sides because I know it's short here and here. Let's make it as big as it can go, which is 11.79 by 2.25. So top to bottom, is great. 11.79, 2.25. I think that's about where we had it before. Let's see how this looks. We're going to check the sides. That's about the same spot where it was before. I think they were both 2.25. Let's go to the bottom. But this takes it all the way to the bottom. And all the way to the top. Using the 2x10 and expanding it both directions kind of preserve the integrity of the loops a little bit better. They don't look a little stretched. I think I'm going to go with this. I think this looks perfectly fine. We'll go ahead and we'll do the other side, and then when we get to this one, we'll have to see which file works best. This floral one has a loop. It's almost exactly the same size as the loop here. They look almost like mirror images. This ended up working out really well. I took this out and readjusted it. We need to quilt here and here. These are 3x6. Let's bring up our files. I believe we have a 2x6 and a 2x4. We do. 2x4, 2x6. See the way they look? I'm going to use the 2x4. And there's a few things we need to think about. Let's go ahead and set that. It has an open end and a closed end. I have a top and a bottom. I think I'll do one this way, and then the other one I'll rotate the other direction, just to balance it out. I need to go ahead and size it up accordingly, just like before. Let's go ahead and rotate that as well, because of the way it is in the hoop. Let's stitch it out, and then we'll stitch out the bottom one, and we'll have a look at the whole block. Here's our finished block. If you look really close at these stitches are longer than some of the stitches here and some of the stitches here. It almost adjusted the size by adjusting the stitches. Very interesting. I've actually never tried that before. Let's bring this up so you can get a good look at it. There's a close-up. Let's look at the block overall. I think it turned out great. It's a very custom job, that's for sure. If you don't like the look of that, you can swap out this block. You can look for a star block that has a smaller center so all of these parts are more uniform, because there's no 3-inch square. If there was a 3-inch square, we could have done a 3-inch square here, a 3, or potentially a 3x6. That's just not an available size unless you're using the border files, which didn't look good. I am pleased with the way it turned out. The floral in the center is pretty dense, pretty detailed, and we've got this nice looser quilting here. Now we're going to go do the rest of the sashing, which has more detail. It's definitely going to look good when it's done. At this point, all of our blocks are quilted. We've stepped through each of them, picked different designs, learned how to place and move things, and with this block, even tried a couple different techniques with borders and resizing. I need to go through the rest of my quilt, look for those bitty blocks and the sashing that I haven't quilted yet, and get those quilted. When you go to quilt these, you just need to change the way you put this in your hoop. You turn your top, hoop it this way, and then do your sashing, and any of the bitty blocks that you missed. I'll go ahead and do that off camera. I'll also do the binding and finishing. If you need to see a video about how to do binding, I'll link a few below. I've got a couple videos where I work on the binding. My project is all done and the binding's on and it's on the floor so we can get a look at it. Let's go in and take some close-ups. We've got our bitty blocks in the corner. I did this spring border. Something of note with this border, with the 2x12, it starts with the flower and it ends with the leaf. So I had to watch my orientation as I was placing my files. Here's our 9 patch, our 4 patch. We've got the friendship star over here and the challenging star. I'm calling this a variable star. I used a program called EQ8 to help me lay out and design this, and this block was titled Variable Star. Just a reminder, you can get your free pattern on my website. The link is in the description box below. Thank you so much for joining me today for custom quilting with our clear blue tiles. Please be sure to check out my other clear blue tiles videos. We have Clear Blue Tiles, a beginner's guide, where we go step by step through edge to edge quilting, and the 3-part series of the Clear Blue Tiles Seasonal Houses Runner. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your quilting and embroidery friends. I'll bring you more Clear Blue Tiles videos. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.